Hello everyone, as I'm sure many of you are by now aware, Blizzard just recently announced the latest expansion for Hearthstone is Whispers of the Old Gods. We've heard some murmurings about this from various sources online for a while now, which seems kind of appropriate given the subject matter of Whispers of the Old Gods. You know, the sort of these twisted beings beneath the earth, spreading their influence in various ways, but I was one of the group who was fortunate enough to be invited to the Blizzard campus in Southern California to get a sort of sneak peek at Whispers of the Old Gods just this past week. And I want to share a little bit of my thoughts on the expansion, some of the conversations that I was able to have with some people on the Hearthstone team today. So, sort of first of all, I think this set seems awesome. Obviously, we have only seen a small number of cards, but the general idea of Whispers of the Old Gods is sort of a new direction for Hearthstone, which I actually had a conversation not long ago where I was saying that I felt like Hearthstone maybe a little, sort of too, fluffy, too like happy and bubbly and funny. Things like the pirates riding parrots and stuff like that. Well, there's certainly a place for that. I think there's also a place for sort of epic fantasy and the struggles between good and evil and such that really do exist in the Warcraft universe, but weren't really portrayed in quite that fashion in most of Hearthstone. So this, clearly is a chance to look at the dark side of some things in the Hearthstone universe. And we see that with some of the corrupted versions and evil twin versions of cards, like the Polluted Hoarder and the Corrupted Healbot, that are kind of weird takes on old familiar things that players have known from before. I also think that it's pretty funny that they're sort of showing the fact that, well, Doomsayer, he's been saying this has been coming this entire time. He's known something was up, the end was coming, and now there's the Vindicated Doomsayer who, instead of getting blown up, gets to hang out and go to fight as a buff 7/7 minion for a little bit less than you'd normally get that body for. But by far the coolest stuff, unsurprisingly, that they showed us, and they showed everyone at this point, was Cthulhu and the Cultists, the Beckoner of Evil and the Twilight Elder. And these cards working together to sort of give the power of the Cultists to Cthulhu. As you play them throughout the game, you can build up your Cthulhu to be powerful later on. We had a chance to play with a couple of demo decks, sort of pre-built decks. They were actually Druid and Mage, that included the cards that they had revealed, and each of the decks had Cthulhu. But it was particularly fun to try and just build up the biggest Cthulhu possible. Speaking of Cthulhu, I kind of have these flashbacks to my raiding days in World of Warcraft. And actually, when I was first sort of working on this video, I was trying to find my old guild's raid video of when we first beat Cthulhu in World of Warcraft. We spent so many hours, so many days banging our heads against that giant eyeball and the tentacles and everything. And finally, when they fixed a bunch of bugs, we were one of the guilds that actually killed Cthulhu the first night that he was fixed. So if anyone out there happens to have the Lost Anarchy versus Cthulhu raid fight video, I really want to see a copy of it, because this is kind of nostalgia from 10 years ago when I was raiding. So I'm a Lendrel in that video if you happen to see it. But anyway, but I am really excited for these cards from a gameplay perspective. I think that the Doomsayer, the Hoarder, and the Healbot, none of those are super exciting to me. They can, maybe play some roles in some decks. The Healbot maybe in a deck with Akanai Soul Priest, maybe it has a role there, or just kind of as a big oversized minion if you can end the game before it gets killed. It can also just maybe be sort of a mid-range style minion in a deck that isn't necessarily trying to push for damage, just using its minions to clear things out. Very much a priest card, I think, either with Akanai or as just, I want this big body to control the board. Polluted Hoarder, I think his stats are a little too bad, and the Doomsayer, I think, is mostly just kind of clever. But Cthulhu and the Beckoner of Evil and the Twilight Elder, those cards are really cool because they really allow you to build a deck that's building toward this late game plan of playing this awesome monster, and you have this sort of you know, oh, this is coming, because they have this really cool animation of Cthulhu sort of popping up on the side of the board when you play one of the cultists that buffs him. And one of the things that I think this shows is that Blizzard is really identifying ways to make sort of big minions good. Like right now, I've said many times that I think that most of the big minions in Hearthstone are just too bad. And there are not really that many that tend to see play. In part because they'll, you know, come into play and your opponent will big game hunter them or do whatever, and they just don't do enough. But Cthulhu, not only can he just win the game on the spot if he's big enough to just blow your opponent up when you play him, can, you know, kill your opponent's board, and if you have things like Shadow Step or you know, other stuff like that to potentially reuse him, you have a Bran in play, your opponent just explodes. But I actually, my first experience playing with Cthulhu in the demo decks, I actually innervated him out in turn 8 and killed all of my opponent's creatures, and that was pretty powerful. It's very similar to something like Deathwing, except Deathwing is a card that, you know, has a cost of discarding your entire hand, so obviously a much more difficult card to use. And frankly, Cthulhu, the fact that it can just end the game is a huge deal. You don't even need to attack, you actually can just kill your opponent with the damage on the spot. But I'll be really interested to see how people build decks with the card, because my inclination is that the classes where it'll likely be best in are probably Warrior and Priest, because those are classes that naturally want to play longer games. They have hero powers that work in that direction. Obviously, if there's other sort of control archetypes, they potentially have Cthulhu fit there as well, but the fact that their hero powers for those two classes can naturally prolong games makes it much easier to get to the point where you can reliably expect to play 10 mana minions. But from what I'm told, Cthulhu isn't the only one of the old gods who is kind of in this vein. Cthulhu is the only one who works with the cultists in the way that he does and has this, you know, constantly growing effect. But all the old gods are apparently 10 mana minions that sound super exciting to build decks around. I don't have any details on them, but I sort of heard some whisperings of some of the developers saying, oh, Yogg-Saron is my favorite. But I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to have big minions that are, you know, built in a way that they are worth surviving to and playing at that point. Most of the stuff that we have so far, like the dragons, I love the dragons that exist now, but most of them don't have a big enough impact to really justify spending as much mana as you do on them. But I am told, this is actually, we had a press conference style meeting while we were there, and everyone was asking questions about, oh, what's going to happen with this, what's going to happen with this. My one question that I asked in the press conference was, are there any dragons in this set? And there are. And it was actually, the response was dragons. So I'm excited that there'll be more possible options for dragon decks. Maybe I won't just be having to betray my people and join the ranks of the cultists of the old gods, but I'm excited, and it should be a really cool time to be a Hearthstone player, not only with this cool new set, but also with the release simultaneously of the new formats with Standard and Wild. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.